How do you know if you are a self-pub person or a trad-pub person? My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. I want to put a caveat here at the beginning that you very well might be both. There are people who hybridize their careers, or you might be neither. There are people who stay hobby writers and never pursue profit or publication because they don't want to, and that's okay. But there are certain personality traits and behaviors that might lend themselves to one or the other. And if you disagree with me, that's okay too. There are certainly people who break the quote unquote mold in either of these career paths, and you are going to do what feels best for you. And if you hear what I am saying and you're like, well, that doesn't resonate at all, and this is why I'm choosing my path, then I genuinely wish you the best of luck because there is no right answer to this. There's only the one that feels right to you. You might be a trad pub person if you do not have the skills necessary to do all of the things that are involved in self pub and you do not want to spend the money on them. So, a self published author is someone who is also their own editor or is responsible for hiring their editors. They are their own graphic designer or responsible for hiring a graphic designer and a book cover designer and a marketer and an advertising team. You are all of these things, or you are responsible for finding those people and paying those people. If that doesn't sound like fun to you, you do not like having the burden of choice and responsibility sitting on your shoulders all the time, you might be a trad pub person. Along the same lines, if you are okay giving up a little bit of creative control, particularly when it comes to titles, cover designs, and maybe a little bit of the story inside, you might be well suited for TradPub. You want to have a partner on your side working with you collaboratively to create this product and put it out into the world. That's what TradPub does. Now, if all of that sounds terrible to you and you really like to have full creative control over every single aspect of this, and you do like the challenge of maintaining the responsibility and the burden of decisions, that means that you might be a good fit for Self-Pub. If you are capable of cranking out 6 to 10 really high quality books per year, even if they are short, you are probably going to chafe at the speed that TradPub moves at, though there are people who manage to put together contracts at multiple houses and put out a lot of books every year through TradPub. It's harder to do. You might be better suited to SelfPub if that's the pace you want to work at and the pace that you want to maintain. There are certain genres that do particularly well in self pub. Right now, this is the fall of 2024. I would say that romance of all heat levels and all subgenres does exceptionally well in self pub. Upper YA, particularly in the fantasy sci fi dystopian space, does pretty well in self pub. And there's a little bit of room for adult romantasy, adult fantasy, although that is not as big as you might believe if you are on TikTok. I think that cozy mysteries and even some thrillers are going to be able to transition over to self pub. We've already seen some people start in that space to see a lot of success, and so I think we might see more of it transition over to self pub in the near future. If you're not writing one of those genres, let's say that you are writing contemporary middle grade, that relies very heavily on school sales, library sales, book fairs, things of that nature. And it's very difficult for self published people to get into those spaces. And so you might have a hard time connecting with your readers if you are trying to self pub one of those genres. If you are writing literary fiction that is going to be in competition for very prestigious prizes, some of them have limitations that they do not accept self published titles to be nominated for them. So it might be worthwhile for you to go through TradPub so that you can be eligible for those prizes, which often have cash associated with them. Even if they do accept self published titles, there are sometimes entry fees to be allowed to submit your name for those sorts of prizes. And having somebody know which ones you are qualified for, pay those fees on your behalf, and maybe even pay out bonuses along with your advance when you win those awards, that happens in TradPub, not so much in self. And again, there might be times in your career in which certain books or certain things belong in one of these categories versus the other, and you can change your mind between them. If you go from trad to self-pub, you'll need to negotiate that with your literary agent and make sure that you understand the boundaries of the contracts with your publishers and with that literary agency. And if you're going from self to trad, again, you're going to need to either query something new or very carefully negotiate the boundaries of what has already been self-published and what the rights are that you are giving up to TradPub. I do want to again caution, I've said it a bunch of times before, that it is a very, very small number of people who start in self-pub and then have that book picked up and moved over to traditional publishing. It happens, but statistically, it is rare. If you want to self publish, do it because that is what you want to do with your book, not because you are hoping somebody will come rescue you from self pub. Do it because you want to and because it's the right place for you and your work.